You're listening to Pedaling Through Life, a 1,000-kilometer father-son Ashtavinayak cycling pilgrimage, presented by Shriram and Sunil Kanbahali. Before we began pedaling across 1,000 kilometers, before we mapped routes, packed our bags, or tuned our bicycles, there was a calling, not from a place, but from within. This audiobook isn't just about cycling. It's about a father and a son, two travelers on two wheels, discovering something deeper with every mile. If you're a parent, you might find echoes of your own silent hopes and unspoken dreams for your child. If you're a student or teenager, you may recognize the thrill of freedom, the joy of discovery, and the quiet strength that comes from perseverance. If you're a teacher, perhaps you'll see how life itself becomes the greatest classroom, where roads teach lessons no textbook ever could. And if you're a cyclist or traveler, you'll sense that familiar rhythm, the meditative hum of wheels meeting earth, reminding us that every journey outward is in truth a journey inward. Across these episodes, you'll ride with us through hills and rain, faith and fatigue, laughter and reflection. You'll meet Lord Ganesha at every turn, not just in temples, but in the small, divine moments of the road. And maybe by the end, you'll begin to see your own journey, the one you're on right now, a little differently. So put on your headphones, take a deep breath, and join us as we begin the 1,000-kilometer father-son Ashtavinayak cycling pilgrimage, a story not just of roads and destinations, but of hearts, hope, and the quiet whispers the wheels. You've been listening to Pedaling Through Life, a 1,000-kilometer father-son Ashtavinayak cycling pilgrimage, presented by Shriram and Sunil Kanbahali. The journey continues. See you on the next ride. You're listening to Pedaling Through Life, a 1,000-kilometer father-son Ashtavinayak cycling pilgrimage, presented by Shriram and Sunil Kanbahali. When there is a will, there is a way. For many years, since around 2021, I carried a quiet wish in my heart, a wish to embark on a cycling pilgrimage to the sacred Ashtavinayak temples of Maharashtra. These 8 shrines of Lord Ganesha, the remover of obstacles, had always seemed to call me. But life had other plans. The pandemic, responsibilities, and that lingering thought of maybe later. Cycling has never been just adventure for me. It is meditation in motion. On the saddle, with the rhythm of breath and wheel, I find silence, self-reflection, and connection with nature. This yatra was more than a test of distance. It was about syncing body, mind, spirit, and the natural world around us. It was during the vibrant days of the Lord Ganesha festival, those 10 days when Maharashtra and the world beyond celebrates Ganapati with devotion, color, and community, that our family conversations about the Ashtavinayak temples deepened. We often spoke about the meaning of these 8 sacred sites, spread across 5 districts, and their timeless relevance in people's lives. The atmosphere of celebration around us made it feel like the right time to not just talk about Lord Ganesha, but to journey through the land and culture where his presence is most alive. Perhaps carried by this spirit, Shriram had something stirring in his mind. One day he looked at me and asked, "Shall we do it together, the Ashtavinayak Yatra on bicycles?" No words can capture the joy of a father when his child chooses not just to accompany him, but to lead him on a journey. I had always encouraged my children to cycle, from kindergarten rides to daily school trips to small adventures around our town. I never realized when Shriram would grow from pedaling beside me to becoming a passionate cyclist in his own right. This pilgrimage became his project. He took charge of everything: cycles, gear, routes, safety, communication strategies. I happily became the follower. My wife, Sunanda, and daughter, Rutuja, cheered us on, helping us pack and prepare. Rutuja, also a cyclist, wanted to join, but her medical entrance exams demanded focus. She smiled through her disappointment, slipping energy snacks into our bags. The night before departure was special. Our home hummed with preparation, adjusting gears, checking brakes, filling bottles, packing clothes and IDs. By midnight, our bikes stood ready, gleaming in anticipation of the road ahead. Alarms were set for 4 a.m., yet excitement made sleep elusive. There was nervous energy, yes, but also gratitude. We were not just preparing for 1,000 kilometers of mountains and valleys, temples and villages. We were preparing for a journey of discovery, of nature, of culture, of faith, and most importantly, of ourselves. In the words of the poet Rumi, as you start to walk on the way appears. For us, as we set our bicycles by the door, the way was waiting, a way of devotion, adventure, and above all, togetherness. Tomorrow, the pedals would roll. Tonight, our hearts were already on the road. You've been listening to Pedaling Through Life, a 1,000-kilometer father-son Ashtavinayak cycling pilgrimage presented by Shriram and Sunil Kanbahale. The journey continues. See you on the next ride. You're listening to Pedaling Through Life, a 1,000-kilometer father-son Ashtavinayak cycling pilgrimage presented by Shriram and Sunil Kanbahale. 1,000-kilometer father-son cycling pilgrimage, Ashtavinayak Yatra, Day 1, journey begins. Every great journey begins with a single step, or in our case, with a single pedal stroke. We woke up even before the alarm rang. In truth, I don't think I really slept that night. As I shared in Day 0, our minds were already on the road. The cycles, fully loaded, seemed to be waiting like eager companions, their shiny frames almost glowing with excitement, as if they too knew what lay ahead. It was still dark outside. Inside the house, the atmosphere was tender, almost ceremonial. My wife and daughter stirred early to prepare food for our long day, a gesture so deeply rooted in family care that it slowed us down in the best possible way. No rush, no haste, only gratitude. That breakfast was not just fuel, but a blessing wrapped in love. By the time we wheeled our bicycles onto the street, dawn had broken. Shriram, full of youthful energy, clicked a few photos before we rolled out. Together we chanted Ganpati Bappa Moria, and with that, our pilgrimage truly began. Leaving the city behind. The roads were quiet as we left Nashik, before traffic could crowd the streets. Soon we found ourselves on the Nashik-Pune highway, skirting past the Samruddhi Expressway and climbing our first ghat. Looking back from the top, the city lay far behind. A proud moment. A reminder that this was no longer a dream, but a living adventure. At the summit, the landscape opened into a flatter stretch where we came across a small Siddhivinayak temple. It was humbling to see how travelers, whether on foot, bike, or vehicle, paused there, bowing their heads before Lord Ganesha. The discipline of faith was palpable, a reminder that belief travels with us wherever we go. Soon after, our stomachs called for a halt. We found a family-owned restaurant where we enjoyed misal pav and chai. Alongside, we opened the breakfast lovingly packed by my wife. That meal gave us not just strength, but comfort, a taste of home on the road. Into the villages. Leaving the highway, we pedaled onto rural roads. Morning in a village has its own symphony. Smoke rising from kitchens, cattle heading to fields, children in uniforms reciting prayers in schoolyards, women filling pots at the taps, farmers setting off to tend their crops. Fields glistened golden, touched by the September sun. At one school in village Gonde, a branch of Maratha Vidya Prasarak Samaj, we were drawn in almost magnetically. The teachers, open-minded and gracious, paid no heed to our sporty attire. Instead, they welcomed us warmly and eagerly invited us to engage with the students. As destiny would have it, they were celebrating Teachers' Day in advance. The timing could not have been more perfect. I spoke about the power of education, the importance of teachers, and the gift of curiosity. Shriram added his youthful perspective. The children, full of questions, lit up with energy. Before leaving, the school felicitated us. We politely declined the gifts, except for one, a book by Swami Vivekananda. That felt like the right companion for our journey. Lessons from the road. As we cycled on, villagers greeted us with curiosity and warmth. Some asked about our pilgrimage, others offered tea or lunch. Their encouragement reminded us of a simple truth. People everywhere are eager to connect, to give, to share. As we pedaled further into the countryside, the road itself became a storyteller. Suddenly, the air was filled with the sound of laughter, bright, unrestrained, unmistakably that of children. We followed it like a trail of joy and soon found ourselves at a small government primary school in Bhojapur, Sonawadi. It was their lunch break, and the children had just finished eating, now running and playing in the ground. The moment they spotted us, bicycles loaded with gear, their game froze. One by one, they gathered around, their eyes wide with curiosity. Within minutes, we were surrounded, a circle of shining, innocent faces. Their teachers soon walked over, and what began as polite inquiries turned into a lively, engaging conversation. Shriram and I invited the students to ask us anything that came to their minds. What followed was a delightful barrage of questions about bicycles, about journeys, about technology, even about rocketry. Their imagination knew no bounds, and their curiosity was as fresh as the afternoon breeze. We stood there for nearly half an hour, answering their questions, laughing with them, and soaking in their unfiltered wonder. That simple, unplanned interaction became one of the most energizing moments of the day, a reminder that children with their curiosity are the purest form of explorers. By afternoon, the sun grew harsh, but clouds offered intermittent relief. At one point, we rode alongside the backwaters of a dam. The sight was breathtaking, birds chirping, grasses swaying, trees dancing in the breeze. Water is life, and in that moment, it also felt like wisdom. Rivers travel long distances to finally rest in still waters, just as we too are travelers in search of our destination. We halted at a roadside temple for lunch and rest. Under the shade of a tree with our bicycles leaning close by, we stretched out on the earth. 1.5 hours of rest later, we were ready to continue. A home for the night. We hadn't planned where to stay that night, but experience had taught us not to overdo day one. Pushing too hard early could exhaust us for the days ahead. As evening approached, we arrived at Agastya Rishi Ashram at Akole, located on the Pravara River. The resident students and teachers welcomed us like family. It was here that Shriram's love for music came alive. He played the pakawaj, mridangam, during the evening bhajan. The students instantly accepted him as an elder brother, crowding around with questions and laughter. Their discipline was inspiring. Serving food to each other, eating silently, praying before and after meals, cleaning their own plates. We offered the book of Vivekananda to one of the teachers, a kind woman who cared deeply for her students. That felt like the right place for it. Our bicycles rested safely for the night, while we lay on simple mattresses in the temple hall, surrounded by a few devotees, buzzing insects, and the gentle sounds of the village night. Exhausted but fulfilled, we talked about the day, replayed the memories, and planned for an early morning ride. At 4 a.m., the alarm was set. By 5 a.m., our bicycles would once again kiss the road. Day one had ended not just as a physical ride, but as a day of family, faith, community, and countless lessons. As we drifted to sleep, I thought of these words: we travel not to escape life, but so that life does not escape us. And thus, our true pilgrimage had begun. You've been listening to Pedaling Through Life, a 1,000-kilometer father-son Ashtavinayak cycling pilgrimage presented by Shriram and Sunil Kanbahale. The journey continues. See you on the next ride. You're listening to Pedaling Through Life, a 1,000-kilometer father-son Ashtavinayak cycling pilgrimage presented by Shriram and Sunil Kanbahale. 1,000-kilometer father-son cycling pilgrimage, Ashtavinayak Yatra, Day 2, journey continued. Dawn broke gently at the Agasti Rishi Ashram. Before the alarm could ring, I was already awake, stretching on the floor mattress, the soft sound of the Pravara River flowing in the distance. Bells from the temple chimed, the fragrance of oil lamps and incense lingered in the air, and chants of devotees carried a divine calmness. By the time Shriram rose, I had already finished my routines, and together we went for a morning darshan of Agasti Rishi and Lord Ram. Stepping out of the ashram, we were greeted by the first golden light of the day, cool air brushing our faces, and birds announcing a new beginning. By 5:30 a.m., after securing our luggage on the bicycles, we rolled out into the semi-dark village roads. Life awakens in Akole Crossing. Akole Village was a lesson in simplicity. Elders were already out on morning walks, women prepared for the day ahead, while children still dozed in their beds. Choosing the rough road over the smoother highway, we passed by farmlands, cowsheds, and quiet homesteads. In lonely stretches, only the barking of dogs reminded us that we were strangers on their watch. Ahead lay the Ghat section and forest area we had been warned about the previous evening. The hills glowed as the rising sun touched them, shades of green and gold shifting like moving brushstrokes, with clouds painting the sky behind. The forest was alive, Peacocks called out, almost as if they were announcing our arrival in their territory. The uphill climb tested our stamina. Sometimes we pedaled, other times we pushed our cycles on foot. Just when the silence of the forest seemed overwhelming, a group of young men and women jogged downhill, all preparing for defense entrance physical tests. Healthy, energetic, and determined, they paused to greet us with admiration, calling us sportsmen for taking on such a journey. Inspiration on two wheels. By mid-morning, hunger and thirst had set in. There were no restaurants in sight, so we managed with biscuits, energy bars, and juice. After miles of effort, we came across a small vegetarian eatery named Garawa, started by a local couple. It felt like an oasis. We ordered a simple but hot and delicious lunch, grateful for food made with love. While finishing our meal, we met a man who became the day's greatest inspiration, a 75-year-old villager on a simple, non-geared bicycle, carrying farm produce. He told us he cycled every day from his village to Akoli and back, never needing a doctor or medicines in his life. His only secret, regular cycling. Listening to him filled Shriram with awe and both of us with fresh energy. Hats off to him, proof that fitness and freedom don't always need modern gyms or gadgets. Young curiosity and dreams later, we arrived at Sahayadri School in Brahmanwada, just in time for their sports break. Hundreds of children surrounded us in excitement, soon joined by their teachers. Within minutes, the open ground turned into an impromptu assembly. The students sat in neat rows under the blazing sun, their eyes shining with curiosity. After I spoke about our journey, the students bombarded Shriram with questions about cycling, travel, even space and rockets. The discipline and enthusiasm were striking. I noticed that girls formed more than 60% of the group, and many openly shared their dreams of becoming doctors, teachers, or cracking UPSC and MPSC exams. Their confidence was refreshing. The teachers welcomed us warmly with open-mindedness that ignored our sweaty sports attire. The principal, a woman with a caring and compassionate presence, offered us shawls and coconuts as tokens of respect. We humbly declined the gifts, not wanting to burden our bicycles with extra weight, but carried the blessing in our hearts. Generosity on the road. Cycling further, we experienced the boundless generosity of strangers. At a bell stall in Junar, a kind farmer insisted on paying for our snacks, calling it an honor to serve pilgrims of Lord Ganesha. The shopkeeper, too, added extra items free of cost, his smile as generous as his heart. Elsewhere, a motorcyclist stopped us on an uphill road, insisting he contribute money or via PhonePe to our yatra. On my travels, he said, strangers help me with food and shelter. Today, it's my turn. We requested he send only 1 or 11 so that we could offer flowers to Lord Ganesha in his name. He promised 101. It wasn't the amount, but the act that mattered. Kindness, after all, is only real when practiced. Darshan at Lenyadri, the first Ganpati. By evening, the sky darkened with heavy clouds as we approached Lenyadri, the first of the 8 Ashtavinayak temples. The temple is nestled in caves high on a hill, and its gates close by 7 p.m. Just as we arrived, rain poured heavily. We sat on a bench, drenched yet mesmerized by the sight, the caves glowing with lights against the rain-draped mountains, framed by the 5 elements: sky, air, water, earth, and fire. That, I felt, was our true darshan of Lord Ganesh. Without even climbing, he revealed himself in the grandeur of nature. All fatigue suddenly disappeared. Faith filled the void. Night at Sant Muktabai Temple. Determined to reach Ozar Ganpati the same night, we rode on with a small torch fixed to our cycles. But midway, the torch battery died. Darkness engulfed us. With no streetlights and tales of leopards in the area, continuing was unsafe. We dismounted and walked. A few kilometers later, we found shelter in a roadside temple dedicated to Sant Muktabai, sister of Sant Jnaneshwar. The temple was simple, clean, and secure. As we settled in, the owner arrived, offering us food and an invitation to his home. We politely declined, grateful already for the shelter. His words still echo, temples are built for travelers like you. You never know in what form God may come. That night, as rain poured outside and we lay on the cool temple floor, I whispered to Shriram, sometimes God closes one door only to open another. The drained torchlight was not misfortune, but divine timing, guiding us into Muktabai's care. And so day 2 ended, with lessons in resilience, humility, generosity, and faith. The pilgrimage was not just about reaching temples. It was about the journey itself, about the people we met, the kindness we received, and the spiritual truths that unfolded with every pedal stroke. You've been listening to Pedaling Through Life, a 1,000-kilometer father-son Ashtavinayak cycling pilgrimage presented by Shriram and Sunil Kanbahale. The journey continues. See you on the next ride. You're listening to Pedaling Through Life, a 1,000-kilometer father-son Ashtavinayak cycling pilgrimage presented by Shriram and Sunil Kanbahale. Father-son cycling pilgrimage, Ashtavinayak Yatra Day 3. Journey continued. Every morning we are born again. What we do today is what matters most. Buddha. After a peaceful night under the humble shelter of Sant Muktabai Mandir, with no mattress, no luxury, just faith, we felt deeply cared for, as though we had been blessed to rest at the saint's feet. At 4:30 a.m., the world was still wrapped in darkness when I woke up. Moments later, Shriram stirred too. With no facilities at the temple, we strapped our luggage onto our bicycles and quietly rolled onto the road. The early morning ride was magical. Nature woke slowly, like a curtain being lifted on the stage of life. From the pitch-black outlines of the mountains to faint gray silhouettes, and then to the golden glow of sunrise, it was as if the universe itself was painting before our eyes. Cycling wasn't just movement through space, it was participation in this grand awakening, a pause for basics and gratitude. After about 7 kilometers, we found a small restaurant. Sweepers were cleaning the floor, a few still asleep on benches. It was perfect timing, a place to brush, refresh, and pause. We hadn't eaten dinner the night before, nor had any drinking water at the temple. Though breakfast wasn't ready yet, the kindness of receiving fresh water was enough to keep us going, grateful, content, and grounded. The broad road ahead stretched through endless sugarcane fields. Shelters for leopards, we were told, quite common in that region. I silently thanked destiny that we hadn't cycled this stretch the previous night without lights. In the cool freshness of morning, our bodies brimmed with energy and smiles. The kind stranger on a scooter. Not long after, an elderly man in a white kurta pajama passed us on a scooter, carrying his 2 granddaughters to coaching classes in Ozar. He greeted us warmly, asked about our journey, and with a knowing smile rode ahead, as if he had something more in mind. A few kilometers later, we stumbled upon a vast solar park, rows upon rows of glittering panels stretching across what seemed like 50 acres. Curious, we turned in. The security guards and supervisors welcomed us with enthusiasm once they heard our story. They proudly explained how the barren land had been transformed by the Adani Group's solar project under the Prime Minister's Renewable Energy Program. Villagers now earned steady income through rent and employment. It was inspiring. Technology, sustainability, and community working hand in hand. A breakfast of love. And then destiny revealed the old man's plan. As we reached Ozar, he appeared again, waving us down with a warm smile. This time, he insisted we join him for tea and breakfast. We couldn't refuse. Over steaming cups, he shared his story. Mr. Dasharath Jadhav, uncle had never gone to school, yet he had built a life of dignity through sheer hard work. He spoke of his deep respect for education, something he realized he had missed, but was determined to give his grandchildren. Every day, he personally ferried them to ensure they accessed the best possible learning. His humility, kindness, and foresight touched us deeply. In his words, I saw a reflection of my own beliefs that life's greatest lessons are not always taught in classrooms, but on the road, through people, and in the stories we exchange. Divine Darshan at Ozar soon, we entered the serene premises of Sri Vignahar Ganpati Mandir at Ozar. The temple stood in divine grandeur, clean, peaceful, and calm. It was still early, so there was no rush of devotees. Our darshan was intimate and fulfilling. We left with lighter hearts and stronger spirits. Just nearby, a magnificent sculpture depicted Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj meeting Sant Tukaram Maharaj, Shakti and Bhakti, power and devotion, standing together. A timeless reminder that service to people is the truest form of greatness. Roads that teach, winds that guide. From Ozar to Ranjangaon, the roads widened and the gentle downhill slope almost carried us effortlessly. The fields on either side whispered calmness. Along the way, Shriram noticed a radar-like structure standing tall in the middle of a farm. His curiosity pulled us closer. We soon learned it was part of the TIFER GMRT telescope network, silently studying cosmic radio waves from distant galaxies. Though we couldn't go inside, Shriram's eyes sparkled with excitement. Journeys like this, I thought, don't just build stamina, they ignite imagination. Nearby farmers, noticing our curiosity, offered us fresh tomatoes with smiles. Such spontaneous gestures of warmth define India's villages, where hospitality isn't planned, it's instinctive. Atithi Devo Bhava, the guest is God, is not just a saying here, it's a way of life. Lessons under the banyan tree. By midday, the sun was merciless. We found solace under the wide shade of a banyan tree. I lay flat on the ground, eyes closed, feeling the cool earth beneath me. Shriram, ever alert, guarded the bicycles and clicked photos. Those quiet pauses are sacred. They teach you humility. They remind you that comfort isn't about mattresses or air conditioners. It's about gratitude for a patch of shade and a breeze of relief. Inspiring young riders. Later that afternoon, a group of village kids cycled alongside us. Their energy was infectious. "How much does your cycle cost? Where are you going? Can I try it once?" they asked with pure excitement. One little boy shouted proudly, "One day I too will cycle to Ashtavinayak like you." That moment was priceless. If even one child dared to dream bigger because of our journey, that alone made every kilometer worthwhile. A warm welcome at Ranjangaon. By evening, we reached Sri Mahaganapati Mandir, Ranjangaon, our third stop of the yatra. The temple trustees, led by Dr. Tushar Pachankar, the young and kind secretary, welcomed us with garlands, coconuts, and hot tea. Their hospitality left us humbled. We parked our bicycles in the Bak Niwas, refreshed ourselves, and stepped into the sanctum. The aura of Mahaganapati was divine, radiant, powerful, all-encompassing. Our fatigue melted away instantly. Behind the temple, women chanted the Ganapati Atharva Shirsha as part of the Utsav rituals, their rhythmic voices rising like waves of devotion. Prasad was served, simple rice and rasam, but to us it tasted divine. When the server lovingly offered a second helping, I accepted with a smile and folded hands. That night, as we sat by the temple courtyard glowing under the soft lamplight, Shriram and I felt a quiet peace wash over us. Gratitude for the road, for the people, for the blessings, and for the rare chance to live this journey together. As I drifted to sleep, one thought lingered. Perhaps the greatest pilgrimage is not to the temple outside, but to the temple within. You've been listening to Pedaling Through Life, a 1,000-kilometer father-son Ashtavinayak cycling pilgrimage presented by Shriram and Sunil Kanbahali. The journey continues. See you on the next ride. You're listening to Pedaling Through Life, a 1,000-kilometer father-son Ashtavinayak cycling pilgrimage presented by Shriram and Sunil Kanbahali. Father-son cycling pilgrimage, Ashtavinayak Yatra, Day 4. Journey continued. After 3 fulfilling days of riding through the sacred circuit of Maharashtra's Ashtavinayak, Day 4 began with a renewed sense of calm and quiet determination. We had spent the previous night resting at the peaceful temple campus of Ranjangaon, a much-needed pause that allowed both body and mind to recover. As the first rays of sunlight touched the temple spire and the gentle sound of bells echoed in the morning air, we prepared for another soulful stretch of our pilgrimage, morning light and new energy. Our destination for the day was Siddhatek. Since it wasn't very far from Ranjangaon, we thought, why not try to reach Moragan too, the 5th shrine in the circuit? We started a bit later than usual, but without any rush. This journey was never about chasing kilometers. It was about embracing experiences, meeting people, and soaking in the rhythm of rural Maharashtra. For the first few kilometers, we rode along the busy highway. The morning bustle around Ranjangaon was already alive. Tractors, bullock carts, buses weaving through the chaos of movement and sound. Farmers in white kurta pajamas huddled over cups of tea, discussing crop prices at the local market. It was India at its most vibrant. Soon, we turned off the highway toward Karde on the Ashtavinayak road, and the world changed instantly. The traffic disappeared. In its place, endless green fields, soft winds brushing our faces, and the simple joy of pedaling freely. The road was smooth, the air fresh, and before we even realized, we had covered nearly 20 miles, reaching the crossroads toward the Chinchwad-Siddhatek highway. As we entered the next bustling town, we decided to ride through first and eat later. Curious eyes followed us everywhere. Our small bike nameplates reading Ashtavinayak Cycle Yatra drew smiles, blessings, and conversations. At one point, Shriram, who was riding behind me, got surrounded by a group of excited college students wanting photos and selfies. He had his little celebrity moment right there on the roadside. I was a kilometer ahead, waiting until he caught up, laughing and sharing the story. That incident reminded us of something essential: communication and coordination. From then on, we made sure the lead cyclist always glanced back every kilometer or so to check in. Just like in life, journeys thrive on connection and care. A glass of free lemon water, Abi's gesture of cyclist brotherhood. A few kilometers later, a signboard caught our eye: Abi's Kitchen, with a bicycle cleverly carved into the word food. We couldn't resist. The owner, Abi, a young MBA graduate and fellow cyclist, welcomed us warmly. He served us a delicious South Indian breakfast and, with a smile, offered lemon water for free. "It's my tradition," he said, "to offer every cyclist a glass of lemon water. I know how much it helps on long rides." Such simple kindness, it made our morning brighter. We clicked pictures, shared stories, and admired his spirit of cyclist brotherhood. Supporting the cycling community. Refreshed, we continued on the beautifully maintained road toward Dawn, a lively town that felt like a blend of cultures and stories. There, a gentleman on a scooter struck up a conversation with Shriram mid-ride. Moments later, he waved us toward his shop, introducing us to his friend, another passionate cyclist, Mr. Anna Jagtap. They showed us their high-end bikes, one of which, the Triban RC100, instantly found a place on Shriram's wish list. Anna shared valuable advice: padded cycling shorts for comfort and regular hydration, water, juice, even tea, to sustain energy. We were amazed to hear how they often covered up to 250 kilometers in a single day. Over steaming cups of tea, they shared lessons on endurance, health, and road discipline. Before we left, they gifted us water bottles and insisted we call anytime if we needed help. Their generosity reminded us again: the cycling community truly is one big family. Innocent children, reflections of God. A few miles later, we were joined by a small group of school children on bicycles. It was their holiday, and their eyes sparkled with curiosity. One boy, Krishna, rode close and invited us home for tea or lunch, saying, "Please come back here on your return journey." His innocent warmth touched us deeply. Those children, unfiltered by the digital world, reminded us of the beauty of pure, simple human connection. The holy river Bhima and Siddhivinayak's blessings. By afternoon, the majestic river Bhima appeared on the horizon, calm, wide, and divine. The sight of it filled us with awe. Shriram stopped, taking photos with our bikes beside the water, a moment of perfect peace. Siddhitek, our fourth shrine, stood gracefully on the riverbank. The temple area was alive, filled with chants, devotees, and the fragrance of incense. Despite the crowd, we managed a serene darshan of Lord Siddhivinayak. The temple trustees noticed our cycling gear and warmly invited us for prasad, a simple yet divine meal. I'd promised Sriram earlier not to eat too much before long rides, but, well, some promises are hard to keep. He smiled knowingly as I enjoyed the food a little too much. During lunch, we met Bapu Koltede and his family from Saswad, also on pilgrimage with their two young sons. They were inspired by our cycling journey and said they hoped to motivate their children to try something similar. That exchange, so spontaneous, so heartfelt, felt like another blessing. Outside the temple, the rhythmic chak-chak-chak of sugarcane machines filled the air. We sipped fresh sugarcane juice, nature's sweet dessert after a divine meal. When the sky turns. Lessons from the road. As we left Siddhitek toward Morgaon, the sky began to shift. The wind grew stronger, pushing against us. Soon, dark clouds gathered and rain poured down with full force. We usually loved cycling in the rain, laughing like kids, but this was different. Visibility dropped to near zero. We rushed into a roadside government office for shelter. The kind staff welcomed us in. We sat on the green synthetic carpet, legs stretched, watching the rain swallow the road. For almost an hour, time stood still. When the downpour eased, we resumed, only to realize 5 kilometers later, Shriram had left his helmet behind. Without hesitation, he turned back. A reminder: safety is never optional. By the time he returned, dusk had settled. We knew we couldn't reach Morgaon that night. With no hotels nearby, we kept searching. We kept searching until we reached a small village called Wireless Fada on the Don Patas Road. Wireless Fada, a darshan of humanity. There stood a humble temple glowing under the soft light of evening diyas. The villagers, seeing two drenched cyclists, welcomed us like family. They were celebrating the final night of their 10-day Ganesh festival and insisted we stay for dinner. Their hospitality was beyond words. Men cooked together, youth served food, women sang devotional songs. It was a living picture of harmony and gratitude. Over dinner, we learned these families had once been displaced during the British era, yet their spirit remained unbroken. We shared stories. Shriram played the miradangam during bhajans, and I sang a simple hymn, an offering from my heart. The courtyard echoed with music, laughter, and prayer. It felt like the soul of India itself was singing. By midnight, the village grew quiet. Though many invited us to sleep in their homes, we politely declined, wanting to leave early. We tied our bikes to a temple pillar and lay down on the cool floor. The soft hum of crickets and the faint fragrance of incense filled the night. As I closed my eyes, one thought echoed in my mind. Every destination is sacred, but it's the people along the way who make the journey divine. Because the real pilgrimage isn't measured by miles, but by the smiles, the questions, and the stories you collect along the road. You've been listening to Pedaling Through Life, a 1,000-kilometer father-son Ashtavinayak cycling pilgrimage presented by Shriram and Sunil Kanbahale. The journey continues. See you on the next ride. You're listening to Pedaling Through Life, a 1,000-kilometer father-son Ashtavinayak cycling pilgrimage presented by Shriram and Sunil Kanbahale. Father-son cycling pilgrimage, Ashtavinayak Yatra, Day 5. Journey continued. The soft chill of dawn wrapped around us as we quietly packed our bikes at Wireless Fada. The little village still slept peacefully after the night's joyful festivities. We wanted to leave early before anyone could wake up and lovingly insist on serving us tea that would no doubt turn into breakfast and delay our start. So, with hearts full of gratitude for their warmth, we slipped away into the misty morning. The road stretched ahead like a blank page, waiting for the next chapter of our story. A morning goodbye. Our plan for the day was simple yet sacred. First, to visit Lord Sri Moreshwar at Morgaon, and then onward to Jejuri, the holy abode of Lord Khandoba, our family deity. Though Jejuri isn't officially part of the Ashtavinayak circuit, for us it was a natural inclusion, a call of faith, of heritage, and of home. Sunrise over the fields. As we reached Patas, dawn began to unfold in shades of gold and rose. Shopkeepers yawned awake, sweeping doorsteps, lighting their first incense sticks of the day. The world was just beginning to stir. Finding a cup of tea that early was no easy task, but persistence has its rewards. Just beyond the highway crossing, we found a small tea stall. The man served steaming cups of jaggery-sweetened chai, earthy, rich, and comforting. With the first sip, warmth spread through us. The kind of warmth that comes not just from tea, but from the feeling of being exactly where you're meant to be. We paired it with a few snacks, knowing that once we turned off into the rural route, food stalls would vanish. As we left the highway behind, the hum of engines faded, replaced by birdsong and the whisper of the wind through the fields. The sun rose higher, painting the sky amber. Fields of sunflowers flanked both sides of the road, their golden faces swaying gently as if smiling at the travelers passing by. For a moment, it felt as though nature herself had lined up to bless our way forward. Through the forest of silence. Soon, farmlands gave way to the cool shade of a reserved forest. Signboards warned of leopards, deer, even the occasional tiger, but we felt no fear, only a quiet calm. Years of cycling through nature had taught us one truth. Wild animals rarely harm unless provoked. They protect, they defend, but they don't attack without reason. In many ways, they mirror the discipline of life itself. We pedaled close together, the crunch of gravel beneath our wheels blending into the forest's soft rhythm. Sunlight filtered through the canopy in golden rays, birds called from hidden branches, and the earthy scent of the forest filled our lungs. It wasn't just a ride, it was meditation in motion. As we emerged, Flocks of birds fluttered above, circling their hanging nests, delicate miracles swaying in the morning light. We slowed down to watch them, smiling in silence. Moments like these didn't just mark distance, they deepened connection to nature, to the journey, to each other. The divine pause at Morgaon. By noon, we reached the sacred entrance of Lord Moreshwar's temple. A large tree shaded the gateway, its broad arms offering the perfect place to rest. The air was thick with incense, the sound of bells drifting softly from within. Our darshan of Lord Moreshwar was peaceful, simple, complete. The temple trustee, noticing our cycling gear, smiled and insisted we stay for prasad. We gratefully accepted. The meal was humble, rice, dal, vegetables, yet it felt divine. Every bite carried love, and with it, strength for the road ahead. Before leaving, the manager, Mr. Rajendra Jagtap, said with a knowing grin, "Your bicycles will love the road to Jejuri." His words felt like both blessing and promise. We bowed, thanked him, and set out once again toward Jejuri. Onward to Jejuri. The road from Morgaon to Jejuri was a cyclist's dream, smooth, scenic, and peaceful. The breeze was gentle, almost like a companion pushing us forward. The rhythm of our wheels became our background music. Shriram, still a little tired from the previous night's bhajans and late sleep, hoped we'd find an early stop at Jejuri. And I knew what he needed most wasn't luxury or comfort, just a night of deep rest. As the golden hill of Jejuri appeared on the horizon, the fort temple glowing under the sun, something stirred within us. A blend of reverence and homecoming. On the roadside, a heartwarming sight stopped us. A tiny baby girl, barely 2 months old, smiling from her grandfather's arms. That innocent smile, it melted away all fatigue. Her grandmother, who ran a small eatery nearby, offered us snacks and kindly guided us toward a decent lodge for the night. Once again, it was the kindness of strangers that carried our journey forward. The Golden Hill of Faith. Jejuri greeted us with its unmistakable energy. Alive, radiant, deeply spiritual. While I secured our bicycles, Shriram went searching for accommodation. He returned triumphant. Clean room, good price, negotiated. I smiled. His enthusiasm was its own kind of reward. After a quick wash and some laundry, we felt refreshed and ready to climb the sacred hill of Lord Khandoba. The ascent to the temple was both physical and spiritual. The air vibrated with drum beats, chants, and the echoing cry, "Yelkot, Yelkot, Jai Malhar." The town glowed in shades of turmeric, Jejuri's signature golden dust of faith. It clung to everything, the steps, the idols, the air itself. Shriram couldn't resist sharing the moment. He called home from the temple stairs, laughing and waving, showing the view to family, eagerly watching from miles away. That nightly call had become our quiet tradition, a thread of connection that tied us to our loved ones while we roamed free. The Feast of Contentment. By the time we descended, night had fallen, and Jejuri had transformed into a carnival of lights. It was the final night of Ganesh Chaturthi, and the air pulsed with celebration. Fireworks cracked above, people danced, music filled every street. Our hunger soon joined the celebration, reminding us that even devotion needs dinner. But every restaurant we found was closed, owners lost in festivity. After several tries, we finally found one small eatery still open at the main crossroad. The owner smiled, saying, "You're just in time. Food for the gods is still being served." We laughed, grateful beyond words. As we ate, Visarjan songs played outside, devotees bidding farewell to Lord Ganesha with tears and joy. Shriram took a long breath, leaned back, and said, "Best dinner of the trip." I silently agreed. Perhaps it wasn't just the food. It was the journey to find it, the patience, the gratitude that made it taste so divine. Closing reflections. Back in our lodge, we stretched out on clean mattresses, letting tired muscles finally rest. Our clothes hung by the window, our bikes leaned against the wall, faithful companions sleeping beside us. Outside, the night still hummed with faint echoes of devotional songs. As I closed my eyes, I thought about what Shriram had said over dinner. Maybe people were happier when there were fewer choices. He was right. In this world overflowing with options, we often forget the joy of simplicity. A cup of tea after a long ride, a kind stranger's guidance, a clean bed after a day of dust and devotion. That night, we understood something profound. The true measure of a journey isn't how far you go, but how deeply each mile changes you. You've been listening to Pedaling Through Life. a 1,000-kilometer father-son Ashtavinayak cycling pilgrimage presented by Shriram and Sunil Kanbahale. The journey continues. See you on the next ride. You're listening to Pedaling Through Life, a 1,000-kilometer father-son Ashtavinayak cycling pilgrimage presented by Shriram and Sunil Kanbahale. Father-son cycling pilgrimage Ashtavinayak Yatra, Day 6, journey continued. The night at Jajuri pulsed with the rhythm of drums, music, and chants, a final farewell to Lord Ganesha after 10 divine days. Yet, despite the echoing celebration, both of us slept deeply and peacefully. Perhaps it was the pure exhaustion of the road, or maybe, as I often say, true tiredness is nature's best lullaby. Physical effort grants the kind of rest no luxury mattress can ever promise. At dawn, we woke with renewed spirit. The festive scent of turmeric still hung in the air as we packed our bags, checked our bikes, and rolled out of Jajuri. The cool breeze kissed our faces, carrying whispers of devotion from the distant hills. Ahead of us lay Thor, the abode of Lord Chintamani, the remover of worries, before we would cross the bustling city of Pune by evening. The sky stretched like an artist's palette, soft grays, bright whites, a gentle blush of blue. We rolled downhill, gliding smoothly for a few glorious minutes before the inevitable climb began again. And just like life, cycling teaches you rhythm. Every descent is followed by an ascent. Every moment of ease prepares you for the next challenge. We paused for a sip of lemon water, nature's perfect energy drink, before pedaling onward through the morning calm. Spiritual stop at Thir. As we neared Thir, the scent of wet earth and blooming fields filled the air. Thir, once built and loved by the Peshwas, stood before us, peaceful, ancient, and welcoming. We parked our bikes near the temple gate where a kind security guard urged us to hurry. "The prasad will be over soon," he said. We smiled. Lord Ganesha never lets his devotees go hungry. Under a shaded wooden pavilion, volunteers served steaming food with warmth and joy. They looked at our dusty cycling gear and insisted we take second helpings. Their kindness fed more than our bodies. It nourished our spirits. Inside the temple, carved sagwan wood and the sound of old bells filled the air with history. One of those bells, they said, was a gift from the Peshwas themselves. And again, we found the portrait of Jagadguru Sri Maurya Gosavi Maharaj, the visionary who had first given form to this sacred Ashtavinayak pilgrimage. Before leaving, we met the temple manager, Mr. Badre, a soft-spoken man with an eye for travelers' needs. Over a cup of tea, he suggested an alternate route through Pimpri Chinchwad to avoid Pune's heavy traffic. His advice, as we would soon discover, was a blessing in disguise. Rain and rush of Pune. As we left Thur behind, the peaceful countryside slowly gave way to the chaos of the city. The quiet hum of crickets was replaced by honking cars, flashing billboards, and restless energy. And then, the skies opened. Rain came down in torrents, heavy and unrelenting. But instead of seeking shelter, we embraced it. Two riders, soaked to the bone, laughing in the downpour, rolling through half-empty streets as the city ducked for cover. The rain became our companion, washing away fatigue and turning each puddle into a playful challenge. Yet as the kilometers passed, the exhaustion of navigating chaos crept in. Maps struggled to make sense of narrow lanes and flyovers. Both of us began to long for the peace of open fields again. And somewhere between the splashing tires and city noise, a quiet thought arose. Have we really progressed with our cities, or just complicated our simplicity? Why do people work so hard in these concrete jungles only to crave escape into nature on weekends? The question stayed with us as we pedaled through the drizzle. Cyclists along the way. Just as we were maneuvering through the crowded roads, a friendly motorist waved and pulled over. "Hey, cyclists," he called. His name was Mr. Gajanan Kaire, a fellow cycling enthusiast. His excitement was infectious as he offered us tea and breakfast. We politely declined, determined to cross the city before dark. When we mentioned the pain from long hours of riding, he immediately recommended a friend at the decathlon store nearby who could help. "He'll take care of you," he said, and he was right. The moment we reached the store, we were greeted by a smiling man who introduced himself as Mr. Bipin Andre, a seasoned cyclist who had already clocked over 65,000 kilometers on his bike. His goal, he told us, was 75,000 by year's end. I laughed and challenged him to aim for 1 lakh. He grinned. Challenge accepted. Bipin helped us pick the perfect padded shorts, a small change that brought us immense relief. After 6 long days of riding, that comfort felt like a miracle. Meanwhile, Shriram's eyes sparkled as he admired the sleek Tribon RC100, a model he had been eyeing since dawn. "I'll own it one day, Baba," he said, his voice full of quiet determination. I smiled. "And you will," I replied. Some dreams don't need encouragement, just acknowledgement. With renewed comfort and lighter hearts, we pedaled out of the store, grateful for the unspoken brotherhood among cyclists everywhere. The Metro Miracle. By late evening, the rain returned, heavier this time. We stopped under a flyover to plan our next move when a young man approached us, cheerful, curious, and helpful. "Are you on the Ashtavinayak Yatra?" he asked, pointing at the nameplate on our bikes. We nodded. He smiled. "Then take the Pune Metro. You can carry your bicycles inside. It's allowed. You'll cross the city in minutes." It sounded unbelievable, but true. Just ahead stood Ramwadi Metro Station. We rolled our bikes in, purchased tickets, and for the first time in 6 days, our bicycles became passengers. As the elevator doors closed, a few onlookers stared curiously. Some even mistook us for railway workers in bright red jackets. Inside the air-conditioned metro, we laughed quietly, watching the flooded streets glide by below. It felt divine, a moment of rest gifted by the universe itself. Our fellow commuters asked about our journey, inspired by the sight of 2 drenched riders with bikes in tow. That young man, our spontaneous guide, truly felt like an angel sent for that exact moment. Night at the guest house. We alighted at Pune Station, the city lights glowing like scattered jewels. Traveling further to Lonavala at night didn't feel wise. So I called my elder brother, a judicial magistrate who had once served in Pune, for guidance. On his advice, we headed to a nearby government guest house. The night duty manager greeted us kindly and offered a simple dormitory room. No frills, no fancy decor, just a clean space. And to us, it felt like luxury. We parked our bikes safely inside, washed off the day's grime, and made our way to the canteen, still open and bustling. Dinner was warm, humble, and comforting. As we ate, the rhythmic sound of rain on the tin roof became our music. Lying on our beds later, we looked at our faithful bicycles resting quietly by the wall, still wet, but gleaming with pride. Shriram turned to me and whispered, "Our bikes must be happy today." I smiled. "Yes," I said softly. "For once, they got to rest while we did the riding." Reflections on the road. Every day of this pilgrimage was teaching us something new. Patience, humility, surrender. The forest and the city, the climb and the glide, the effort and the ease, all part of the same divine rhythm. As we drifted to sleep, ready to catch the local train to Lonavala at dawn, I realized something quietly profound. This journey was never just about reaching temples or ticking off miles. It was about transforming within, one pedal, one prayer, one realization at a time. You've been listening to Pedaling Through Life, a 1,000-kilometer father-son Ashtavinayak cycling pilgrimage presented by Shriram and Sunil Kanbahali. The journey continues. See you on the next ride. You're listening to Pedaling Through Life, a 1,000-kilometer father-son Ashtavinayak cycling pilgrimage presented by Shriram and Sunil Kanbahali. Father-son cycling pilgrimage. Ashtavinayak Yatra, Day 7, journey continues. They say, to experience life, slow down. Our 7th day began not with the rush of wheels or sunrise excitement, but with a little surprise from the road itself. By 5 a.m., we were all set, bags tied, helmets snug, hearts eager to roll, when I noticed my bike's rear tire had gone flat. The rain from the night before had clearly played mischief, carrying tiny sharp debris into the tube. For a moment, I felt a pang, like watching a companion fall ill mid-journey. But before I could even worry, Shriram, as always, had a spark in his eyes. "Baba," he said, "let's not wait for shops to open. Let's take the train to Lonavala. We'll fix it there and skip the morning traffic." Brilliant, practical, adventurous. Train ride to Lonavala, a different kind of journey. By 6, we were at Pune Station. Tickets in hand, cycles carefully loaded into the luggage compartment. For once, our loyal bikes weren't carrying us. They were the passengers. As the train rolled out, the city blurred into streaks of color. Watching life flash past at such speed felt both fascinating and strange. On a bicycle, you feel every breath of the world, the smell of wet soil, the greeting nods from strangers, the rhythm of your own heartbeat. But from a train, life passes by like a slideshow, visible yet untouchable. Cycling slows life down, and in that slowness, you start truly living. Shriram sat by the window, quiet and thoughtful. I didn't disturb him. I knew reflection is as vital as motion. Sometimes the journey within begins long before the next destination appears. The rain, the gat, and the mechanic who believed in service. By 8 a.m., we reached Lonavala under a misty drizzle. We needed a mechanic, but no one seemed to know of any. For many, the world of cyclists is invisible until you step into it. Shriram pulled up Google Maps. 2 kilometers from here, he said. And so we walked, through rain-washed lanes, past mist-covered cottages and ancient bungalows. The world was quiet, dreamy, and almost sacred. At one field, young men were doing military-style training, shouting commands, pushing through mud and pain. Watching their focus stirred something in us. Perseverance, that's the real muscle behind every victory. We finally reached a small cycle repair shop, the only one open that early. The mechanic, already at work, greeted us with a smile. He fixed the puncture swiftly. A tiny metal spike had been the culprit. But he didn't just repair a tire, he restored our rhythm. He was more than a mechanic. He was a man of the road, a believer in service. We left with his blessings and a renewed sense of gratitude. Breakfast, fog, and freedom. Our stomachs soon reminded us that devotion also needs digestion. A small eatery nearby welcomed us with steaming idlis, dosas, vada pav, and sandwiches. The warmth of the food, mixed with the cool morning mist, felt divine. By 9:20, we were back on our saddles. The rain was soft, almost playful, as we rode downhill through the fog-kissed valleys of Lonavala and Khandala. The air was rich, cold, fragrant, and alive. Clouds wrapped around us like gentle arms. Every few meters we stopped, for tea, for photos, or simply to breathe. At one small stall, a woman offered us hot chai. As we sipped, she spoke about her life, how the rains hurt farmers but brought more travelers, helping her keep her family afloat. Her words carried gratitude wrapped in simplicity. That cup of tea, under rain, fog, and compassion, became one of our sweetest memories. People of the road, wisdom and warmth. Further downhill, an elderly man waved to us with joy. He lived nearby, helping his daughter-in-law sell roasted corn to tourists. His stories were simple, but his peace profound. Between bites of corn and laughter, he reminded us that true wealth is not in possessions, but in love, faith, and honest work. As we continued, the mountains turned into poetry. Waterfalls cascading like silver ribbons, fog drifting like silk, and valleys echoing laughter. For Shriram, this stretch became the heart of our journey. For me, it was the joy of watching him live it, not just ride it. Mahad, the grace of Sri Varadvinayak. By afternoon, we reached Mahad, home of Lord Varadvinayak, the seventh of the sacred Ashtavinayak shrines. There was no exhaustion, only peace. Standing before the deity, our hearts were still. The temple was quiet, and the lake behind it mirrored everything, sky, trees, and devotion. I thought to myself, to truly see yourself, be still like a lake. When the water is calm, it reflects truth. When disturbed, it shows illusion. Soon we met Mr. Rajendra Badgujar and the temple trustees. Among them was Mr. Joshi, a cyclist from Thane. Overjoyed by our journey, they blessed us and offered sacred prasad, sweet lapsi, food for both body and soul. Their warmth was a reminder, faith connects faster than words ever can. Onward to Pali, the final stretch beckons. With hearts full, we began pedaling again. Toward Pali, home of Lord Balaleshwar, the final stop of our 1,000-kilometer pilgrimage. The road turned poetic, green valleys, sleepy villages, the monsoon mist hanging like a hymn over trees. We rode mostly in silence, speaking only through smiles. Soon, the Konkan highway opened wide before us, smooth, fast, busy. But somehow we missed the slow village roads, the ones that taught patience, humility, and the value of small joys. Truck drivers passed us waving or honking encouragingly. Respect on the road, a rare gift. As we passed Imagika Park, Shriram's eyes lit up. We had once planned a family trip there, but never went. Watching his quiet excitement, I felt the passage of time, how children grow and dreams wait. But this journey, this pilgrimage of sweat, spirit, and smiles, it had given us more happiness than any amusement park ever could. The Roadside Angel. We stopped by a small stall to throw away our waste. The shopkeeper, an elderly man with kind eyes, pointed to the bin, then, almost like a messenger, said, "You're going to Pali Ganpati? Don't miss the hot water lake nearby. Take a holy dip there. It's divine." His words felt less like advice, more like destiny whispering directions. We thanked him and moved on, unaware that those words would soon guide our night. Arrival at Pali, the final darshan. As dusk settled, we entered the serene lanes of Pali. Old wooden houses, clay roofs, and the quiet hum of temple bells welcomed us home. And then, at last, the temple of Lord Balaleshwar, our final destination. After 1,000 kilometers of devotion and discovery, we stood before the divine idol, eyes moist, hearts silent. Shriram whispered, "Baba, it feels like Ganpati is everywhere, in the trees, the people, even the rain." I smiled. That's because, Beta, when your heart awakens, you start seeing God in everything. The air was filled with a spiritual discourse on Advaita Vedanta, echoing exactly what we felt. The one is everywhere. The journey within is the real pilgrimage. The gentle soul of Pali, Mr. Soman. After darshan, we met Mr. Chandrasekhar Soman, the temple manager, a man of rare calm and kindness. His very presence was comforting. He insisted we stay the night at the temple guest house and even offered a beautiful suite. "You must rest," he said. "Tomorrow, take the train from Nagathana toward home." Over dinner, he shared simple yet profound lessons about karma, faith, and the timing of life's rewards. His humility reminded me of saints from scriptures, ordinary in words, extraordinary in wisdom. The mysterious hot water lake. Just as I was ready to rest, Shriram reminded me of the lake the old man had mentioned. It was dark and late. I hesitated, but his enthusiasm was unstoppable. "Let's go, Baba. We can't end our journey with a maybe." So we went, towels packed, hearts curious. But fate had one more surprise. My rear tire went flat again. A local mechanic checked inside. The tube was gone, replacement needed, but he didn't have one. Then with a smile, he said, "Take my cycle. Visit your lake. I'll fix yours while you're away." A stranger trusting us with his own bicycle. Pure faith in action. We rode through the dark, guided by faith more than light. The road wound through fields and forests, at times eerie, at times peaceful. Finally, faint lights shimmered ahead, and there it was, the hot water lake. We stepped in, and instantly warmth wrapped around us like grace itself. All fatigue melted away. The water soothed every cell, every thought. Science might call it geothermal heat, but to us it was divine energy, nature's way of saying, "Well done." The night of gratitude. By the time we returned, our bike was fixed. The mechanic's trust had been rewarded and ours reaffirmed. At the temple dining hall, volunteers served us hot prasad. We ate in silence, hearts overflowing. Later, as we lay in our comfortable beds, rain tapping gently on the window, I whispered a thought that had formed within me. The end of every pilgrimage is not in reaching the temple, but in realizing that the temple was always within. That night, the rain sang us to sleep, a lullaby of gratitude for two travelers who had found not just the road, but themselves. You've been listening to Pedaling Through Life, a 1,000-kilometer father-son Ashtavinayak cycling pilgrimage, presented by Shriram and Sunil Kanbahali. The journey continues. See you on the next ride. You're listening to Pedaling Through Life, a 1,000-kilometer father-son Ashtavinayak cycling pilgrimage, presented by Shriram and Sunil Kanbahali. Father-son cycling pilgrimage, Ashtavinayak Yatra, Day 8, Journey Back Home. Every journey has two destinations. Every journey, I've realized, has two destinations, the one on the map and the one within. After 7 unforgettable days of riding through faith, fatigue, laughter, and lessons, our 8th morning dawned not with the thrill of reaching somewhere new, but with the quiet joy of returning home. Polly still slept under the soft blanket of pre-dawn silence when we woke, even before the alarm. The air was cool, still, and fragrant with the night's calm. The faint moonlight spilled gently across the narrow village lanes. It was time to say goodbye, not to the road, but to a chapter of life that had changed us forever. Moonlight and morning petals. We set off beneath that fading moon, its silver glow guiding our way, our petals creating a soft rhythm that echoed through the empty streets. The road to Nagaton wound through forest patches where the hum of cicadas and the distant ringing of temple bells became our music. It was one of those rare rides when neither words nor speed mattered. Only the moment did. Then, from the shadows, another cyclist appeared, a villager, humble and cheerful, riding an old, squeaky bicycle. Without hesitation, he joined us. He spoke of his morning routine, his fields, and the nearby river. His presence felt familiar, as if he had always been part of our journey. Sometimes companions arrive not by coincidence, but by grace. Tea, kindness, and the 7 a.m. train. As dawn brushed gold across the horizon, we stopped at a tiny roadside tea stall. The shopkeeper, Mr. Nilesh Bopi, curious about our cycling pilgrimage, refused to accept any payment. "This is my offering for your yatra," he said, joining his hands with a smile. That single cup of tea, humble, steaming, filled with kindness, tasted like pure blessing. From there, we pedaled swiftly toward Nagaton Station and caught the 7 a.m. train. Our bicycles rested safely in the luggage compartment, swaying gently as the train began to move. Outside the window, the rising sun lit up rivers, forests, and farmlands. Watching it, I felt something shift inside. The same sun that had witnessed our first pedal stroke now watched us ride home. Through the hills of Kasara Ghat. Our train journey ended, but the road wasn't done with us yet. At Kasara, we unloaded the bicycles and decided to ride through the legendary Kasara Ghat, one final test of endurance before home. The sun was fierce, the slope unforgiving, but every drop of sweat felt sacred. Nature rewarded our effort with lush green hills, hidden waterfalls, and the breathtaking view from the ancient stepwell, the Bhavati built by Ahilyabai Holkar. Halfway up, Shriram laughed aloud, trying to catch a lift from a slow-moving truck playfully racing beside it. His joy was contagious. I smiled and thought, faith and fun can indeed coexist beautifully. Sometimes it's not the climb that matters, but the company that keeps you going. Lunch, life, and lessons. At the top, we stopped at a small roadside dhaba. A playful cat jumped across tables while the owner served us hot chapatis and dal with a grin. As we ate, we spoke about everything: cycling goals, Ganpati songs still echoing in our heads, and the faces of all the kind souls we'd met along the way. Every stranger had taught us something: humility, gratitude, and the joy of living simply. When we began our descent toward Nashik, the road turned smooth, the wind gentle. Passing cyclists smiled and waved. Each nod felt like a silent salute, a shared recognition among travelers on the same spiritual road. Homeward hints. By evening, fatigue began to whisper in our muscles. The traffic thickened, the daylight thinned. Just then, a tempo driver noticed us struggling and pulled over. "Come on, load your cycles. I'll drop you till Vilholi," he offered kindly. It was another small miracle, one of many that had carried us through this pilgrimage. As we neared Nashik, Shriram's energy returned. "Baba, let's stop at Decathlon," he said excitedly. The same store where his beloved Triban RC100 had first caught his eye. His fascination hadn't faded one bit. I smiled. Dreams, I thought, don't end with journeys. They often begin there. The final stretch. Back in the city, traffic lights blinked, horns blared, and the familiar chaos of Nashik welcomed us home. "Baba," Shriram reminded me gently, "follow the signals. We've come this far safely. Ma and Rutuja are waiting." His words, calm and responsible, filled me with quiet pride. Soon the skyline of Nashik appeared, familiar yet somehow new. We stopped to pick up milkshakes and ice cream for Rutuja, Shriram's small but thoughtful gesture of love. And there they were, Sunanda and Rutuja, waiting at the gate, eyes shining, smiles wide, their joy brighter than the sunset. Journey completed, bonds strengthened. As we parked our bicycles and folded our hands before the small Ganpati idol at home, silence filled the room. Not the silence of exhaustion, but of peace and fulfillment. The Ashtavinayak yatra was complete, but the true journey, the one within, had just begun. We had set out searching for temples of stone and returned discovering the temple within ourselves. Ganpati Bappa Moria. Until the next journey. You've been listening to Pedaling Through Life, a 1,000-kilometer father-son Ashtavinayak cycling pilgrimage presented by Shriram and Sunil Kanbahali. The journey continues. See you on the next ride. You're listening to Pedaling Through Life, a 1,000-kilometer father-son Ashtavinayak cycling pilgrimage presented by Shriram and Sunil Kanbahali.
Pedaling through life, a father-son story of hope, faith, and connection. In a world racing at the speed of Wi-Fi, sometimes the best thing we can do is slow down, to feel the wind on our face, to listen to our own breath, and to rediscover the people who matter most. That realization led us, a father and a son, to set out on an almost 1,000-kilometer Ashtavinayak cycling pilgrimage across Maharashtra. It began as an adventurous idea and ended as a life-altering journey of faith, love, patience, and rediscovery. What unfolded over 8 days became far more than a ride. It became a spiritual passage, one that brought us closer to ourselves, to each other, and to the world around us. The spark that became a journey. It all began over a simple dinner conversation. Like most modern families, our days revolved around work, study, and screens. We were connected online, but slowly drifting apart in real life.
As an innovator and entrepreneur working in science and social research, my world often spins fast. But deep inside, I felt the need to pause, to reconnect with my son before time and routine carried him away into his own adult world.
I was a 20-year-old computer engineering student, busy with projects, friends, and campus life. I loved cycling, swimming, and music, but I never thought of combining those passions with spirituality. When Baba suggested, let's do a cycling pilgrimage to the 8 temples of Lord Ganesha, the Ashtavinayak, it sounded almost impossible, but something inside me said yes. And just like that, the thought became a plan. 2 bicycles, 2 backpacks, 1 shared dream. We weren't chasing adventure, we were chasing meaning.
When the road became a teacher, from Nashik to Pune, from Ranjangaon to Pali, every kilometer became a classroom. Every turn, a lesson. The beauty of cycling is that it forces you to slow down, to see, hear, and feel the world around you. The smell of freshly cut sugarcane, the sound of temple bells echoing through quiet villages, children shouting Gampati Bappa Moria as we rode past their schools.
I realized how much we miss when we travel fast. The road, with all its bumps and blessings, teaches patience, humility, and gratitude, lessons no book can ever give.
Every day felt like an adventure. Once, an old man in Ozar stopped us and said, "You're riding to all 8 temples? May Bappa bless you." He invited us for tea and shared stories from his youth. At another village, a shopkeeper refused to take money for our tea, saying, "This is my offering for your pilgrimage." Elsewhere, temple trustees offered food and shelter. These moments reminded us the true soul of India doesn't live in cities, it lives in its people.
Parenting on the pedals.
I've always believed parenting isn't about instruction, it's about participation. On the road, we weren't father and son, we were a team.
Riding beside Baba changed my perspective. I saw that he wasn't just my parent, but also a learner, curious, passionate, determined. When he struggled on steep climbs, I cheered him on. When I grew tired, he reminded me to breathe and keep going.
Sometimes our conversations were just the rhythm of pedals, the hum of tires, the whisper of the wind.
I watched Shriram mature before my eyes. He grew calmer, more reflective, more connected to himself.
And I saw Baba in a new light, not as someone with all the answers, but as someone willing to explore, to fail, to grow. When his tire went flat near Pune, we laughed instead of complaining, pushing the bike together to the station. Later at Pali, when his tube burst again, a mechanic offered his own cycle so we could reach the temple.
That moment taught me divinity doesn't always live in temples. Sometimes it lives in the grease-stained hands of a kind mechanic.
Moments of magic and meaning. Every day brought something unexpected. Through the misty hills of Lonavala, clouds touched our faces like blessings. At a roadside stall, rain poured as we shared steaming cups of chai with strangers who became instant well-wishers.
My favorite moment was at Mahad's Vinayak temple. The lake was still, perfectly mirroring the temple. Baba said, "To see your true self, be still like this water." That line stayed with me.
At Pali, our final destination, temple trustees welcomed us with warmth. That night, we bathed in a hidden hot water spring nearby. The water felt sacred, washing away fatigue and doubt alike.
I looked at Shriram and felt deeply grateful. The journey had given me more than memories. It had given me a new bond with my son.
The ride home, and what truly changed. The 8th day was emotional and enlightening. As we pedaled through Kasara Ghat beneath the morning sun, we realized We weren't the same two people who had left home 8 days earlier. The noise within us had quieted. The speed of life had slowed. What remained was peace.
When we finally reached home, I and my sister Rutuja were waiting by the door. I handed them ice creams we carried back and said, "We did it." Their smiles were worth every pedal we had pushed.
That moment, standing together, tired yet fulfilled, was the real darshan of our entire pilgrimage.
Lessons beyond the road. This Ashtavinayak ride wasn't just a cycling expedition. It was a mirror of life itself. Cycling taught us resilience. Parenting taught us patience. Spirituality taught us surrender.
Today's young minds are surrounded by information but starved for experience. They know the world through screens, not through touch, sound, or feeling. A journey like this reconnects generations and reminds us of what truly matters.
Every uphill climb felt tough, but the view at the top made it all worth it. Life is exactly like that. We learned that slowing down doesn't mean falling behind. It means noticing what you were rushing past.
That faith isn't about rituals, but about trust. And that love doesn't always need words. Just shared experiences. A message for every family, cyclist, and dreamer. Take time, not tomorrow, not someday, today. Stop at schools along the way. Listen to teachers. Empower students. They feel valued when you do. Ride, walk, or travel with your family. Talk to your children. Listen to them. Laugh with them. Give them stories no gadget can offer. Because the greatest inheritance isn't wealth, it's time, values, and shared memories. Cycling is more than fitness, it's freedom. It connects you to nature, to communities, and to your own inner rhythm. It teaches balance, not just on two wheels, but in life.
As parents, we try to shape our children's future with advice, but journeys like these shape both parent and child together.
I'll never forget what Baba said at the end. We didn't just visit 8 temples. We discovered 8 lessons: love, patience, courage, faith, humility, gratitude, simplicity, and joy.
And maybe that's what Lord Ganesha wanted us to learn all along. The journey continues. Our 1,000-kilometer father-son Ashtavinayak cycling pilgrimage ended where it began, at home. But something within us continues to move. The wheels stop spinning, but the rhythm of the journey still echoes in every sunrise, every smile, and every act of kindness we encounter. Ganpati Bappa Moria. The road goes on, and so does the journey within.
You've been listening to Pedaling Through Life, a 1,000-kilometer father-son Ashtavinayak cycling pilgrimage presented by Shriram and Sunil KHANDBAHALE. The journey continues. See you on the next ride. You're listening to Pedaling Through Life, a 1,000-kilometer father-son Ashtavinayak cycling pilgrimage presented by Shriram and Sunil KHANDBAHALE.
Two Wheels, One Soul, a cycle's tale of 1,000 kilometers as told by Sunil's bicycle. I am made of metal and motion. 2 wheels, a frame and a spirit that hums when the wind brushes past my handlebar. I was built to move, but I never knew that someday I'd move a soul. For years, I stood quietly in the corner of the house, wiped clean, oiled on Sundays, ready for short rides to work. My rider, Sunil, often took me through city lanes to his research centre, to the market, to thoughtful evening rides when he needed to clear his mind. I loved those rides, short but meaningful. But then, one morning, everything changed. He looked at me differently, not as transport, but as a companion. "Let's go on a pilgrimage," he said aloud. "All 8 Ashtavinayak temples, on cycles." At first, I thought it was one of those passing human dreams, bright in the morning, forgotten by night. But soon I saw him planning, polishing me, checking my gears, loading a saddlebag on my back. There was excitement in his eyes, the kind that only dreamers carry, and beside him, another young rider, his son, Shriram, stood with a spark I hadn't seen before. His own cycle, shiny and eager, stood next to me like a younger sibling. We looked at each other, 2 machines, one seasoned, one new, knowing we were about to share something unforgettable. The first pedal. From routine to reverence. When our journey began, I could feel the tremble in Sunil's legs, part excitement, part fear. The road was long, the destination far, but his faith was firm. As the first rays of dawn touched our frames, I whispered to the road beneath us, "We are ready." The road whispered back, "Then begin." Through cities and villages we rolled. I carried him not just on my seat, but in spirit, his laughter, his thoughts, his silent prayers. Every time he leaned forward to climb a hill, I felt his heartbeat through the pedals. Every time we coasted downhill, I heard his sigh of freedom. I saw people turn and stare. Children waved, elders blessed, dogs chased, each adding a note to the music of our pilgrimage. At Jejuri, I waited near a wall while Sunil and Shriram disappeared into the temple crowd. My wheels cooled from the heat of the road, my frame resting, but I could still feel the vibration of their devotion returning through the ground, as if the earth itself was alive with prayer. Lessons from the road cyclists say they ride for freedom. I say we ride for truth, because when you're on two wheels you cannot lie, not to yourself, not to the world. Every mistake shows. Every effort counts. I've seen Sunil ride through rain, drenched, smiling, unstoppable. I've seen him battle the sun's fire, lips dry yet still whispering, Gampati Bappa Moria. I've felt his muscles weaken, then rise again with the thought of his son beside him. And oh, the sun! Shriram, young, strong, impatient, curious. His cycle would often race ahead, then wait, turning back to see if we were coming. Sometimes I'd hear his laughter echo behind me, teasing his father with youthful energy. Other times, silence, the kind of silence that happens when a boy is learning something deep about life, about his father, about himself. At Thur, when Sunil rested his hand on my seat and said softly, "The road teaches more than books," I knew he was right. The beauty I witnessed. If humans have eyes, I have wheels, and they too can see. I've seen fog kiss the mountains at Lonavala like a dream still half asleep. I've seen trees bend like mothers offering shade to their travelling children. I've seen small villages come alive with morning prayers and cows returning home by dusk. I've seen temple bells swinging in rhythm with my spokes. I've seen kindness on unknown faces, a tea vendor, a fellow cyclist, a stranger offering directions like blessings. And I've seen the bond between father and son bloom like sunlight after rain. They spoke less but shared more. Their pauses were deeper than their words. Sometimes I'd feel Sunil slow down, pretending to adjust me, but really he was letting his son lead. And sometimes I'd feel his hand tighten on the grip, a father's instinct to protect. Rest, reflection, and renewal. There were days when I ached, my tyres thin, my chain heavy with mud. But the care I received was almost tender. At every stop, Sunil would check my brakes, clean my gears, tighten my bolts. To others it was maintenance, to me it was love. At night, when we were parked outside a temple or resting in a humble lodge, I'd listen to their conversations, dreams, plans, laughter. Sometimes silence. And I think silence is sacred when shared between hearts that understand. I also learned something about faith. Humans go to temples to meet their gods. But for me, the road was the temple and the journey itself was the prayer. The final stretch, when we reached Pali, the last Ashtavinayak temple, I felt something divine flow through my frame. The road had tested us, the weather had shaped us, and faith had carried us. Sunil stood beside me, eyes moist, looking at Lord Ganesha's idol. Shriram stood next to him, hands folded, head bowed. I couldn't pray, but I think I did, in my own silent language of steel and spokes. That night, when they took a holy dip in the warm spring waters, I waited under the starlit sky. Raindrops rested on my handlebar like blessings. For a moment I felt alive, not as a machine, but as a witness to something eternal. On the way back, I could sense their eagerness to reach home, to return to the ones waiting for them. The same legs that had pedalled thousands of turns now carried gratitude instead of fatigue. When we finally reached Nashik, I stood outside the house, muddy, tired and shining. Inside, laughter filled the air, hugs bridged the days apart, and the aroma of home-cooked food filled the space like divine prasad. No one noticed me much, and that's fine, because I was never meant to be the hero. I was the bridge between father and son, between faith and freedom, between silence and understanding. My reflection. People often think cycles are lifeless, but I believe we are keepers of human stories. We remember the sweat, the laughter, the prayers whispered while riding uphill, and the peace felt when the road evens out again. If I could speak to all humans, I'd say this: don't rush through life. Ride it slowly. Feel the bumps, the wind, the effort and the joy. Because the road doesn't just take you somewhere, it makes you someone. And if Lord Ganesha were to bless me, I'd ask for nothing more than this. Let me always carry hearts that seek meaning, not miles. For I am just a bicycle. But on this journey of 1,000 kilometres, I became something more, a silent witness to love, faith, and the human spirit in motion.
You've been listening to Pedaling Through Life, a 1,000-kilometer father-son Ashtavinayak cycling pilgrimage presented by Shriram and Sunil KHANDBAHALE. The journey continues. See you on the next ride. You're listening to Pedaling Through Life, a 1,000-kilometer father-son Ashtavinayak cycling pilgrimage presented by Shriram and Sunil KHANDBAHALE.
Wheels of Wonder, a young cycle's journey with Shriram Meksha, as told by Shriram's bicycle wa. They say every adventure begins with a spark. For me, it began with a smile. Shriram's smile, that mischievous, unstoppable, let's do this kind of smile. I still remember the day he picked me up from the store. His eyes gleamed brighter than my polished frame. He ran his fingers over my handlebar, like an artist feeling a new instrument. And when he said softly, "You and I will go places," I knew he meant it, literally. At that time, I had no idea how far those places would be. 1,000 kilometers later, I'd learned that roads don't just stretch across maps, they stretch across hearts. The journey begins, pedals, prayers, and playfulness. The first day of the Ashtavinayak cycling pilgrimage felt like the beginning of a festival. The morning air was crisp, the roads were open, and my wheels were singing. Beside me rode another cycle, older, heavier, quieter, carrying his father Sunil. I looked at her and nodded like a young colt to an old horse. Let's see who keeps up. She didn't reply, just rolled forward gracefully. But over the next few days, I understood her silence. She wasn't competing, she was meditating. Meanwhile, my rider was all enthusiasm. He clicked photos, waved at villagers, and shouted, "Ganpati Bappa Moria," every few kilometers. Sometimes he'd race ahead, sometimes he'd stop just to feel the breeze. I loved his rhythm, impulsive yet sincere. Where his father sought devotion, Shriram sought discovery. And I carried both. Through rain and radiance. Ah, the rain. My favorite companion. It would drum on my frame, run down my spokes, and wash away the dust of the miles. I remember Jajuri, that golden town where turmeric floated in the air like sunlight. Shriram laughed through the streets, his face painted with yellow dust and joy. When he called home on video to share the scene, even his phone camera couldn't keep up with his excitement. That night, parked under a lodge window, I listened to father and son talk softly. Shriram was tired, but his voice had that tone of victory, that quiet pride of having earned sleep through effort. I think humans underestimate what exhaustion can teach, that tiredness can be sacred when it comes from purpose. Lessons in motion. I saw my rider grow on the road. Not just in stamina, but in spirit. He learned to fix a puncture without complaining. He learned that downhill speed feels glorious only because uphill climbs demand grit. He learned that silence on the road isn't emptiness, it's peace. There were moments when he'd stop suddenly just to look around. A herd of cows crossing, an old farmer smiling, children shouting, "Cycle, cycle!" and running beside us. I could sense the gears turning in his mind, not mine, his. He was beginning to see the world, not just move through it. At Lonavala, as fog hugged the hills, he went speechless. I could feel his breath slow, his heart steady. The boy who began this trip with energy was now learning stillness. That's the thing about long rides. You start by chasing the wind and end by listening to it. The bond beyond miles. Sometimes I'd glance at the other cycle. She carried Sunil with quiet dignity, a steady companion to a steady man. When both of us rested at a temple or roadside tea stall, she'd say softly, "He's teaching his son to live, not just to ride." And I'd reply, "And the son is teaching him to smile again." Together, we carried 2 generations, one seeking meaning, one creating it. They didn't always speak much, but their bond was in their rhythm. When one slowed down, the other waited. When one was silent, the other hummed a tune. Even their laughter sounded synchronized. A perfect cadence of father and son, man and boy, past and future. Moments I'll never forget. I'll never forget that hot, sunny afternoon when we stopped at a roadside tea stall. The lady served steaming chai in tiny glasses. Shriram took a sip, made a face, and said, "Too sweet." and then laughed, finishing it anyway. Simple joy, no filters. Or that night in Pali when they went for the holy hot water bath. I waited under the stars while the temple bells echoed in the distance. I could imagine Shriram splashing in the sacred water, his laughter mixing with the chants, youth meeting divinity in the most innocent way. And the next morning, as we started for home, he patted my seat gently and whispered, "You did great, buddy. For a cycle, that's like receiving a medal." The ride home, reflections and realizations. The road back was quieter, not because there was less to see, but because there was more to feel. I think Shriram had changed. He wasn't just cycling anymore. He was understanding. He began to ride slower, noticing details he'd missed before. The way light broke through clouds, the smell of wet soil, the sound of temple bells fading behind. He no longer raced ahead. He matched his father's pace, side by side, wheel to wheel. It was no longer a journey of two speeds, but of one heartbeat. By the time we reached Nashik, his smile had matured. It wasn't the grin of a boy who conquered roads, but the peace of a young man who discovered himself. What I learned as his cycle life. I was born to move, but in this pilgrimage, I learned to pause. I learned that the meaning of travel isn't in kilometers, but in connections. I learned that companionship, whether between man and machine or father and son, is the true fuel for any journey. Most of all, and that growing up doesn't mean losing curiosity. It means finding wisdom in wonder. When we reached home, I stood outside, wet, muddy, tired, but my heart, if I had one, was full. Inside, the family's laughter echoed like temple bells. I heard Shriram telling his sister stories, his father smiling quietly beside him. And I realized, for all my thousands of rotations, the most meaningful distance I helped him cover was not on the road, but the one between childhood and understanding. If I could speak to other young riders, I'd tell them this. Ride far, get lost, sweat, fall, fix, learn. Because on the road, you don't just find new places, you find new versions of yourself. I am just a bicycle, gears, brakes, and a bell that still rings faintly of rain and laughter. But to me, this was more than a ride. It was a chapter of life written on asphalt and faith, a story of two hearts, two wheels, and one beautiful road home.
You've been listening to Pedaling Through Life, a 1,000-kilometer father-son Ashtavinayak cycling pilgrimage presented by Shriram and Sunil KHANDBAHALE. The journey continues. See you on the next ride. You're listening to Pedaling Through Life, a 1,000-kilometer father-son Ashtavinayak cycling pilgrimage presented by Shriram and Sunil KHANDBAHALE.
Whispers of the Wheels, a conversation between two cycles, an epilogue to the Ashtavinayak journey. Night had fallen softly on Nashik. The stars blinked like distant lamps on a dark countryside road. In the corner of the veranda, two bicycles stood quietly, their frames glistening faintly under the golden porch light. Mud still hugged their tires, and dried turmeric from Jejuri clung to their spokes, like medals of memory. They had no human eyes, but they could see everything that mattered. They had no voices, but tonight they spoke. Sunil's bicycle, the elder speak.
So we made it home.
Her voice carried the calm weight of a pilgrim who'd seen too much, yet carried it all gracefully.
8 days, 8 temples, 8,000 emotions, and yet it feels like the road is still humming beneath my tires.
Shriram's bicycle chuckled softly, her chain giving a cheerful click.
You always speak like a philosopher. Even after 1,000 kilometers, you still sound like the road itself.
On the road and beyond it, Sunil's bicycle.
Well, the road teaches you patience, especially when your tire goes flat twice and your rider still believes in you.
Oh yes, I remember that day at Pali. You were lying there like a tired sage, and the mechanic offered his own cycle for the Holy Lake ride. That was something.
Yes, that man reminded me. Faith isn't always found in temples. Sometimes it's in the hands of a stranger who trusts you without knowing your name.
I watched them from afar that night, the father and son cycling through darkness toward the lake. It wasn't the road that guided them, it was the difference in their riders.
The difference in their riders.
Your rider, he has fire. There's this sparkle in his pedaling, half curiosity, half courage.
And your rider, he has wisdom. Even when the road was cruel or steep, he never forced you. He simply understood you, like a friend who knows when you're tired but won't say it aloud.
That's because he's learned that patience is also motion. He's teaching the boy that the strongest riders are the gentlest ones.
Funny, isn't it? They began this trip to visit gods carved in stone, but ended up finding the divine within each other.
Moments remembered.
Do you remember the children from that primary school? They surrounded us, full of questions, not about Ganesha or the temples, but about us, the cycles.
How could I forget? Their laughter was louder than the morning bells. I swear one of them tried to count my spokes.
Those moments made me realize we carry more than riders. We carry curiosity, wonder, and stories that will outlive our rust.
And the rain. I'll never forget the Lonavala fog. I thought I'd drown in clouds, but instead, I floated in silence.
You floated. I survived. My brakes squeaked like old prayers on that descent.
Both cycles laughed, a metallic, tender laughter that sounded like wind chimes touched by memory. At the heart of the journey.
Tell me something, old friend. What do you think this journey was really about?
It was never about the distance. It was about the closeness between father and son, between effort and grace, between movement and meaning.
I think so too. I watched Shriram change. He began as a rider, eager to conquer kilometers. But somewhere between Morgaon and Mahad, he stopped riding on me and started riding with me.
Yes, they both did. Somewhere along the road, the ride stopped being a journey to temples and became a journey within.
Reflections in rust and rain. A soft drizzle began outside, as if the skies couldn't resist joining their nostalgia. Tiny drops ran down their frames, tracing stories written in mud and memory.
You know, sometimes I still feel that slight ache in my tyre from that second puncture.
You mean the one at Pali?
Yes, I like to keep it. It reminds me that even when we stop moving, the road stays inside us.
And I still carry specks of Jajuri's turmeric. It makes me look like I've been kissed by the sun.
Maybe we both have. Maybe every road leaves its own blessing.
Home at last, inside the house, the sound of laughter echoed. Shriram's voice animated, retelling adventures. Sunil's calm tone, occasionally joining with a chuckle. The aroma of hot tea drifted out the window.
They're happy. That's what matters.
Yes, we carried them safely, but they carried us with something greater, faith.
The porch light flickered. The night deepened. The world fell silent, except for two bicycles, side by side, their shadows merging as if one. The last whisper before sleep took the house, one final whisper echoed between them.
What happens now? No more temples. No more highways.
Ah, my young friend, the pilgrimage never ends. It simply changes form. Tomorrow they'll ride again, maybe to work, maybe to school, but now every ride will carry a piece of the divine.
A pause, a breeze, a quiet shimmer of moonlight.
Every spoke has a story, every pedal a prayer. And we are the keepers of both.
And with that, both bicycles stood still, proud, peaceful, watching over their riders, their hearts made of steel, their souls made of road.
You've been listening to Pedaling Through Life, a 1,000-kilometer father-son Ashtavinayak cycling pilgrimage presented by Shriram and Sunil KHANDBAHALE. The journey continues. See you on the next ride. You're listening to Pedaling Through Life, a 1,000-kilometer father-son Ashtavinayak cycling pilgrimage presented by Shriram and Sunil KHANDBAHALE.
Through my eyes, the divine view of a father-son pilgrimage as seen by Lord Ganesha. They came to see me, but little did they know I had been watching them all along. From the very first morning, when the father adjusted the saddle and the son tightened his helmet strap, I felt it, that quiet, familiar spark of devotion, not from ritual, but from purpose. A purpose born of love, courage, and the simple wish to journey together. The first pedal, the call of faith. When they began from Nashik, the son kissed their faces with blessing. The father's breath was steady, like the rhythm of wisdom itself. The son's heartbeat, a song of youth, dancing with excitement. Every pedal they pushed whispered my name, not through lips, but through motion. Ganpati Bappa Moria, Each rotation, a prayer. Each mile, a mantra. You see, I do not live only in temples. I dwell in beginnings, in courage, in effort, in the quiet determination to move forward. Whenever a heart begins a journey in faith, that moment becomes a temple. The road is teacher. As they cycled through rain and heat, forests and highways, I watched them. The father slowed down so his son could lead. Sometimes he led, sometimes he followed. Humans call this parenting, but I call it the balance of creation, the same rhythm that beats in my own drum. They met strangers who offered tea, water, or shelter. Those were my forms too. I was the mechanic who lent his own bicycle, the villager who refused payment for tea, the truck driver who stopped, offering a lift on a weary night. My devotees rarely recognize me when I'm not carved in stone, but they always feel me, in every act of kindness. When wheels become prayer. Every temple they reached was sacred, not because I stood there in marble or gold, but because they arrived with open hearts and dusty feet. When they bowed before me, I bowed back in silence. Do you know what true worship is? It's not incense, not flowers. It's compassion. It's laughter after exhaustion. It's patience in chaos and courage in fatigue. The Father's calm guidance, the Son's unbroken spirit. Those were offerings far greater than any ritual. The trials and the tires. When the Father's tire went flat twice, he didn't curse, he didn't quit. He simply sat by the roadside, smiled, and fixed what was broken. Ah, that moment. I blessed him more deeply than 1,000 chants could ever do. Because devotion is not in calling my name, it's in the calm acceptance of delay. And when the sun held on to that slow-moving truck on the steep Kasara Ghat, I watched with gentle amusement, the spirit of youth, half mischief, half miracle. Later, when the Father explained teamwork at the temple, I saw wisdom pass like a torch, one flame lighting another. Faith beyond temples. I was not only in Moregaon, Siddhartek or Ranjangaon. I was there, in the quiet of a train compartment, in the aroma of simple dabba food, in raindrops dancing on helmets. I was in their silence, that deep, wordless understanding between father and son. Even in the chaos of Pune's traffic, in strangers waving, smiling, guiding them, I saw my reflection, my divinity mirrored in their humanity. The return home. The real temple. On the final morning at Pali, I whispered to the moon, "Guide them home." The forest still slept, but their hearts were awake. At Nagatan station, when the tea seller refused payment, I was the warmth in that steaming cup. When the train rolled past hills and rivers, I danced upon the tracks, keeping time with their laughter. And when they finally entered Nashik, weary, sunlit, transformed, I saw their family waiting. The mother's eyes shone with love. The sister's smile sparkled with pride. That moment right there was my true temple. Their doorway became my sanctum, their reunion, my arti. What I learned from them. I learned that pilgrimage is not a route, it's a relationship. It's not about reaching me, it's about rediscovering me in each other. The father learned to trust, to let go, to follow as well as lead. The son learned that strength without gentleness is incomplete, and both discovered, when two hearts move in rhythm, no distance is too far. A blessing for all riders. To all who hear their story, you don't need to pedal 1,000 kilometers to find me. Just slow down, look up from your screens, listen to your breath, notice the kindness of strangers. And above all, ride with someone you love. Because every shared journey, every laughter in the rain, every tear at sunset is a form of prayer. The last whisper that night as they slept, father and son, two bicycles resting side by side, I stood invisible beside them. Their dreams shimmered with rivers and roads, temples and tunes. And I thought to myself, perhaps this is why I am called Vignahata, the remover of obstacles. Not because I clear the path, but because I give the strength to keep pedaling through it. So I blessed them, not with gold or comfort, but with something rarer, the wisdom to keep moving, together. And somewhere, as dawn broke once more over Nashik, a whisper floated softly across the land. Ganpati Bappa Moria, the journey continues within.
You've been listening to Pedaling Through Life, a 1,000-kilometer father-son Ashtavinayak cycling pilgrimage, presented by Shriram and Sunil CANDBAHALE. The journey continues. See you on the next ride.